Hello there, model builders. I just recently finished building my 1903 Wright Flyer, and we're going to try, well, we're not going to try, we're going to go ahead and build the Sopwith Camel. We just received this kit here in the mail just a day or two ago. Pretty neat looking project. Lots of scale parts. A bag of goodies here, multiple sheets of balsa materials, and some plastic components, vacuum formed components that go with the project. So we're going to get this thing up and running as far as build goes. There's a number of pages of instructions and so on to work with and go by. So we're gonna get this thing going here and show you how it comes together. I'm slowly gonna start building this little project, the Sopwith Camel. Elevated the pieces up off of the plastic here where they can easily be glued together. There of course are even instructions on how to make this thing a rubber flyer, glow engine free flight, or what they call a U-control installation. I'd also like to make a note that I'm just starting out and building these balsa kits. I'm not the greatest balsa builder because I'm just beginning. So I know there's plenty of you out there that know much more than I do. So any comments, suggestions, or whatnot that would make my efforts even easier would be greatly welcomed. And I've also searched online for RC balsa kit forums to get more information, which of course is always beneficial to my efforts. And I also like doing these models. Of course, the Wright Flyer there. I like doing these because I'm trying to get my grandkids interested in model building instead of playing in damn video games all the time. And so far they're interested, but I haven't had any real takers. So anyhow, off we go. I'll be starting with the top wing layout. As you'll notice, I've got the little plastic cover on my styrofoam, which makes putting pins and things real super easy. I've got just a few pieces here glued together, and I do like using this Loctite super glue. It's got the little easy control handles on it, so the effort is to move along at a snail's pace because it's basically how I'm going about building this thing. Try to understand the instructions from either the plan or the instruction sheets. So I'm trying to make heads or tails of the specific details and put pieces in place before I glue them. And of course I look at different pictures and such others have put online, help me to better put this thing together. What I've done here is I've just dry set some pieces in place according to the plan. Some particulars, age 4 or 5. Got that set in place. Some wing spars set in place. Got some little pieces just placed and pinned. That way I can be sure that all the pieces that come after it, especially the wing ribs, they all fit, where they need to go. The leading edge in place, as well as the spars. And then we'll start placing the wing ribs in to their particular positions. Okay, as mentioned before, we're going to get these spars and wing ribs Wing ribs. Sounds really tasty. Anyway, got a few of them in place. That way we can stabilize the stronger pieces and get on with putting all these little guys on where they belong. You'll notice I use a lot of these little push pins. They're really excellent at holding things in place, keeping them down flat and level. You can even stick some on an angle, or it'll hold the little spars in place, and you don't have to push the pins through the balsa. Just take a pin and stick it in here sideways, and that angle will hold it in place. Here we have all the ribs in place. This upper or top wing looks real good. We'll now go ahead and add these little G6s in place. They're going to go into little areas that you see there. Couple there, couple there, and a couple of other pieces they call the G8 and the G7. G6s, we'll stick them in where they need to go. In place where they all need to be. We're getting the bottom wing all assembled. It's pretty much identical to the top, just a few extra little details of where some of these wing spars end. As you see there, that's a pretty simple little guy there, and a couple little special pieces that went on these wing ribs here. Got the exact same thing there. F7's F6. And as far as the aileron, hope I said that right, that is kind of pre-assembled here. And we'll take that and glue it into place. Then we've also got another one here pre-assembled. And we'll put it in place here. That made it quite a bit easier to do it that way for both of them, and just glue them into place. Then all we lack is the that 16th inch square spar across here, and that one there, and then the same on the top wing. And by setting these little pins in place, as you can see here, then this aileron basically just snaps into place where I'd like it to be. That you see there. So the pins hold it all in a nice relationship to the parts around it. So what we'll do is we'll just pull it up a little bit from its present position carefully. Put some glue in these little spots and snap it back into place. As you can see there, the little pieces fit right into their spots real well. We got a nice looking transition from piece to piece, much like the other side down here. So if we decide to, we can cut out the aileron like they show here, where it's movable. If we decide we want to do that, we've got all the room that we need to accomplish that. Here we have the left and the right lower wings together. These F1s that go on these inside edges, they're kind of a bit of a specialty piece. What I did here, being that they're on an angle, according to the plan, is I took each one of these, and where the little notch is, I cut a 45-degree angle there and a 45 there, so when it lays on its side, it'll fit against these two spars okay. I did the same with this one. I did a 45 cut there, 45 cut there, so it can lay on that angle. And then I had to take this piece here, and there was one on this side as well, and I had to carve them down a little bit, as you can see, so that this 1/16 piece can lay in there properly on both sides. So a couple little hand cuts, carves, whatnot, and get those pieces in place. I need to cut a little notch there on that one and this one as well, because I'm supposed to, according to the plan, cut it in those two locations and then snap them back a little bit so they're not completely straight. So we're going to give that a shot. Took my X-Acto knife, cut some little V grooves in both of those wing ribs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it in these 3 spots, each one of those in 3 spots. Then when that dries, I'll come back and snap these pieces here and then put them over into the position where they need to be. I've taken the F1s and submerged them in some warm water because I've got to do this little bendy stuff here, including that crack thing. So soaking the balsa in some warm water will give it the ability to be flexible and to bend. So I'm going to leave them in that water for 30-40 minutes and then see how well it does the job. You got the clothespins holding them underwater, so we'll see how that works. After soaking for 24 hours, I was able to get these little sticks of balsa to bend into place. They look good. I got them all pinned in place, and we'll let them dry for another 12-24 hours, so then we can glue them back into position where they need to go. And now we'll be building the fuselage frame. A lot of intricate little pieces to do this. I've got the main keel parts cut out, and what I took with the B1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 is I basically cut them off of their sheet, each piece. Just trying to break them out or cut them out all on the same sheet just looked to be like completely impossible, and I didn't want to break these. So basically we'll just take these and trim them up, clean out the little spots or the other former boards or whatever they call them. Side keels go into place. So we'll clean these up and they'll be much easier to work. So you can see I got B10 cleaned up nice, it looks good. The rest of them, of course, I pulled all the little scrap off of each one of them very carefully. That was really scary trying to get those scraps off of these guys without breaking them in half. So now all I got to do is just take my X-Acto knife and clean up and trim the little debris there, and we can get on with building the fuselage frame. Here they are, all cleaned up. A couple little tiny little pieces of debris still, but they're much workable now. So we'll get them into their particular positions and go from there. And here we have the fuselage left half together. All the B components are in place, or the foamers, or whatever they might want to call them. The side keels are in place. Pay attention, the side keels have a little bit of an angle on that first third, so I can drop down in this location to these lower portions of the fuselage. So make sure you get that particular piece, both of them really. And the bottom half is the part that's straight, and it's got the little curve to the top. That conforms to the outside of the fuselage real well. Turned out to be probably the most difficult part of the project so far, getting this fuselage all in together in place and such. So important that the B1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s all line up end to end, so all these spars and side keels get into position properly. Very important that each one of these are in their proper place. See, this one I had off a little bit, so I ended up having to notch some of these pieces a little bit to fit properly, which I don't typically like to do, but it just happened to be that way. So that's part of the point, would be to line those all up ahead of time and be sure they're all in line when the keels go on, so that everything comes together right. Still looks good. Going to prep the B ports for the right hand side of the fuselage. Get them into position. Now that we got the left side done, the right side is going to end up becoming a little bit easier. Nothing too terribly difficult about doing the second half of the fuselage. It's pretty easy, you know, once you get the first half done. Looking good right there. Couple little details to finish up. A little sanding here and there to smooth some edges, but looks pretty good. In the meantime, I've started getting the tail section set up. Get that together. It'll be a static tail, so I won't have any hinges or whatnot on it, but I'm still gonna dress it up enough so it looks pretty similar to a functioning one. So we'll go from there. On the trick to gluing pieces together that are really thin and don't want to glue them to the wax paper is I elevate them on these little toothpicks. I put the toothpicks in areas where they won't get glued, such as there, here, and here. Then I basically fit the pieces together very carefully, then give them a little dribble of super glue on top, and that'll glue them together just long enough to hold them in place, and then I can start aligning the spars on top. This piece here is about to go into position. I got the ends done, and we'll take this D4 and put it into place. We'll pin it into place, and then we'll just glue it in that location and that location when it's in its proper position, and works good. Tail all put together on the one side. Got the spars in place. We'll flip it over and put these spars on the back side. Finish up a little detail on that, and then we're getting close to doing some tissue work. Okay, I've flipped over the tail, and we're going to start installing these little spars on the back side. That'll strengthen this wing up real, or I should say this tail, real nice. And then when we get that all glued and done, we'll take the end of these and give them a little flare with the Dremel, so we get a nice wing tip, such as the plan shows here. Right, got the wing all together and all of its particular little spars in place on both sides, and we'll take it out and do some Dremel work and do some dremeling on the ends of these guys here, so we can make it look more like this. Meantime, we've been working on the little tail section here, or I guess we call it the rudder. We got that going together, and we got some little pieces of 16th by 32nd coming up that we'll put on there as spars as well. So here we are. We've got some little spar position pieces in place. Got them dremeled to fit for the tissuing portion coming up. Got the rudder done. Gonna do some dremeling on that. Give it some nice touch on these angles here. Got a few extra details done on the fuselage. Nice and tight everywhere. Same as this other wing half. Got a few Dremel things done there, and got it set up where these wing sections now slide into the side of the fuselage mounting points there. So that works real well as this side that'll slap into the back as well. So coming together good. Getting to the point now, like I said, we're going to do some final dremeling, then do some tissuing, and work it from there. Okay, I've begun the tissuing work. I've put the tissue on the bottom halves of the bottom wings, and when I do the tissuing on the bottom halves, I fold it up over this top edge, and then we'll run the tissue over the top and then along here and into the bottom along this line here. Makes for a nice clean look. Got the tissuing going on the fuselage. Slow but sure, kind of need to be tightened up in some places, but that'll soon come about. I've got all the Dremel work done on this particular portion, and it's a little different than what the plan shows. I'm gonna tissue it up and see how it looks. I think it'll be okay. Anyhow, that's where we're at with the tissuing process. What I'd like to show you here is a little how I do this tissuing on the edges. I cut it about, I don't know, 3/8, a little bit longer maybe along all the edges. Then I'll fold it over, like you see here. Give it a little crease along the edge. Looks kind of rough. Then I'll take my glue stick like this. And we'll take the glue stick and rub it on the edge, as you see here. And as that tissue gets wet from the glue, it starts to stick, which you'll see here. So the edges start to fold over a little bit more. And the wetter it gets from the glue, the more it starts to adhere to that area that you're pressing on. So I get along this corner edge here. We'll press it down like you see there. And it basically flattens it right out to where it's really pretty good looking for a corner. So once we get the edge done along here, we'll then just work our little glue stick along the edge on these pieces. On these struts, it'll start to hold even more. So then you get the effect of how this glue stick works. And before you know it, that piece of tissue is gluing down into position rather nicely. So we get it to hold down there. Don't go too hard on it. See there, it starts to get a little more form going. If you look at it from the other side, it looks real good. Of course, then you can always spot some places where you need to maybe put a little more glue in. Simple enough, just wipe it on, dab it on a little bit right there, and it'll hold it right in place. Looks real good. So now we'll go ahead and let that dry a bit, and then we'll take another sheet of already pre-cut tissue, which we have here. We'll lay it down on top of this wing just as soon as we've taken some more of the glue stick and placed the glue on all these bigger edges, the struts and spars and so on. And then we'll lay this on, and then we'll just work the stick into all those different places again, and we end up with really nice tight looking tissuing. Looks good. Okay, what I've done now is I've taken some clothespins and attached this piece of tissue to the stabilizer. Hold it tight at one end. I'm going to pull it tight here. Use my stick and slowly feed the glue through the tissue to the spars. And that'll start slowly holding everything tight in place, kind of like I've done here to the rudder. And then do the same on the back of the rudder. I'll take this, put a sheet of tissue on it, do the same with that. A little bit of gluing and whatnot, slow it sure, holding it tight on one side so it stays nice and tight, and then it starts to look, you know, real good. So we're going to start with this glue stick on the stabilizer. We're going to just slowly work our way from one spar to another. We could start just about anywhere. Probably could start right here. Slowly just dabbing on that glue stick, like you see there. Do the next one. And it slowly starts to glue those little guys into place, real slow and easy. We start getting a little adherence there. Do the same on this one.
Just enough to... I'm slowly gluing and pulling to the right a little bit here. It's tightening up left to right as we work along the edge. So if we go here to the next one, we're just kind of working our glue as we work it to the right here. You can see there it's gluing into place really nice. As I slowly get the tissuing work pushed forward, wings, tail, rudder, and so on, that's coming together real well. I've went ahead and painted some of the plastic pieces that go onto the model itself, working on getting these to fit in their particular locations. A little trimming here and there to get them nice and tight in positions. And we got to cut a little trim on the edge of these where they fit here on the side. A little trimming going on there. So that's all slowly coming together. So it's looking good. Got a little paint to do on the wheels. So we'll be back here shortly and we'll show you how the finishing touch on the tissuing looks. So I've got the couple of plastic pieces in place. I'll work on getting this nose cone. Got to do a little more paint on that as well. And this other, I guess it's a cowling or something of the sort for the back side or the right hand side of the fuselage. In the meantime, I've also put together the axle assembly and the landing gear strut layouts with those little wire devices that go on there. Those are not really that difficult to make. Use the smaller of the wires and basically just bend them with a small pair of pliers to match that shape. And when you build the landing gear strut layouts, you have to build one opposite the other one. So when you turn one around, they both face each other. And when they, let's say if we turn this one around and faces that one, then both parts are appropriate. So you got to be careful that this second one is built completely opposite of the first one, including the little metal support structure there. To adequately place the plastic pieces, I've taken and put the wing in place, not glued it or nothing like that. I got the wing in place, oops, and took the plastic part to fit. I had to cut a little bit here at the bottom so it fits around the wing properly. So that way I know when the wing does go on in place, it'll fit and correlate with that piece there real well. Down to the wire, literally. Got these two guys pretty well done. So we'll cut off the excess thread on both of them. Got the tail mounted. Put the rudder on. Rudder will go on shortly. Get that on there. Got a couple little wheel details going on. Got the wire gear layout done except for the little thread. So looking like we're almost toward the end of this little project. A couple more wheel supports and such. We'll get those in place here shortly and wrap this project up and move to the next one. Okay, for details sake, I'm working on getting the K1s and K2s located.
as you'll see there. So what I found was there's two little indentions in the plastic fuselage. There's one there, one there, one there, which I've cut out, and one here I'm cutting out carefully. What I did is I poked the knife through and flip this over. You can see the knife sticking through right there. I'll carve that out. And then I'll do the same with that one and that one there. And we'll get that cut out so we can get these guys into place, which go there and there. And I've got the detail done on the threading for the landing gear struts, for the landing gear assembly axle, and then I've got the threading done for the wire gear layout. So all those little particular details are coming together. I thought about maybe cutting these out ahead of time, but it's easier, I believe, but you gotta be real careful to cut these out when you've got the fuselage cockpit in place, and just work to get these things to slide into their position. That way we can then get the upper wing in place, which the upper wing has these 4 areas we cut out where the K1 and K2 will install. So we got that done with, and then we can go ahead and start working on getting the lower wing assemblies into place, where these 3 here go into these 3 here and over there. So we're getting there. Put out for both sides. They look really good. I'm going to probably try to glue one set at a time, probably the back first, then the front, and kind of just wiggle the top wing into place, because these have to be on a particular angle, like you see there. So we'll get this worked out on both sides to fit into place. But I believe we'll be okay. I've got I had to drill out those little holes right there, a little larger, so when I run some guy wires, and guy wires we'll use to help straighten this thing up so it looks more efficient with straight configurations. And I think we're pretty darn close. Got the lower right wing in place. Got its little support just there to kind of just hold it in place. It's not glued or anything. It's just kind of there as just something to hold the wing while it dries here against the fuselage. Go ahead and do the same thing with the left-hand lower wing. We'll take it, slide it into these little fittings here, glue it against the fuselage, and then we'll put that little support under here just to kind of hold it in place while it dries. So we'll get into that here in a moment. As mentioned, I've got the wheel supports built and threaded. I drilled out these little holes where the support wires are going to go. And then we take the back in and click it into that spot right there at the L5. And then up here it clicks into the front. You'll see there. And I've already got this one in place. They're not glued yet, but we'll do that shortly. And those clothespins are there. They're basically holding this wing in nice and tight to the body so that glue dries real good. Anyhow, we're going to take this guy here, and he's going to go in this general location, but we have to get this wire to go in there somewhere or another. And the same we'll do over here. So we'll glue the supports in first, and then we'll put in the wheel axle assembly. Got the upper and lower wing attachments here on this left hand side. We'll do the same over here. Pull these down into place. Glue them into place. And then we'll do the rubber band trick like that one there. And hold them in place. And we can do a little bit of rigging. Get the cowl in place. A couple other smaller details. Got the wheel assembly in. Got it all threaded up and nice and tight. Looking good. Okay, other than the pilot and his little machine guns, we got her done. Looks pretty good. Debating about putting the stickers or decals on it. Other than that, it's turned out real nice. Got any comments or questions, ask me. Appreciate it. Have a good one.